Amazing. So if we can all give Varun a huge round of applause and welcome to the stage.
Okay, I think there is some issue with the slider. I'll go without it. Hi. Am I audible now? Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. A warm welcome. I hope you all are enjoying the Data Science Festival. I didn't imagine, to be honest, like there'll be so many people on Saturday, but glad to see you all. I'll be talking about data sharing, data marketplace, but the way I thought I'll keep this is more around how we can talk about different ideas around this topic and how you can apply those ideas in your practical world, right? So that'll be like my agenda in short. Few things about myself. So Varun Khandelwal, working with Snowflake. I work with customers, primarily like global customers, to see what their data and AI strategy can be around like a broader adoption of data and AI in general. Uh, yeah. Before I get started, actually, let me put it on slide mode. I don't know why it was not. Yeah. Anyone knows what this image is of? Yeah, few nods. Anyone wants to volunteer? Yeah. Do you want to say who is this is?
Break into our smartphone.
Yes. So his name is Eliud Kipchoge, who actually broke a marathon record of running a full marathon under 2 hours. So I think it was like 1 hour 59 minutes something, but it was quite a big achievement, right? As it happened, like apparently he got famous because of it, but something else also got famous because of this race, right? And that was Nike Vaporfly shoes, which apparently he was wearing when he was running this marathon, right? And as we all work, like most of us like work in enterprises or in academics, I always like to think of what is the competitive advantage that we have that will turn around our like startup, our organization, or our academic institution to basically have that edge in the market compared to what others are doing in that space, right? If we take this as an example, right, like if you think, in this case, is the Nike Vaporfly shoe a competitive advantage? Maybe, maybe not. I personally like to think not, because obviously, like if you imagine like I having those shoes and trying to run a marathon under 2 hours, I'm sure most of you will bet that I won't be even able to complete a marathon, be rather alone of doing it under 2 hours, right? So that's how I like to think personally. It's though it's a good technology, though technology is great, the shoes itself come with a like a great technology inside it, but it doesn't mean that like it'll help you achieve what you want. In this case, I personally feel the competitive advantage for the marathon runner was primarily his perseverance, his training that they undergo, right? It's all about the core foundation that they build over the period of time that becomes their competitive advantage and not just a enabler or an accelerator, which in this case Nike Vaporfly shoe is. And taking the similar example, right? We all have seen 6 months back when OpenAI came in, Microsoft invested big time. Quite early on, they invested much more this year, and everyone was talking how they could basically take the search market on. They could probably like compete with Google big time, and they could disrupt the space itself, right? But And we actually saw that in the stock prices as well, right? Google, particularly, stock prices were crashing like anything. Microsoft was gaining a lot. We all had like that vision that finally someone else will be bigger in the search space. But as we see, like now, almost 8 months down the line, do we see much has changed? To be honest, not, right? And if you see again, like the competitive advantage of OpenAI is their models, is their LLMs. But for a company like Google, like building those competitive advantage is not like a difficult thing, right? They can invest money, they can onboard different capabilities in it, though they might not be as equal to like the OpenAI models, right? But the core, their core foundation is something else, much more than the models that they run on, and that is something they have built over the period of time. And again, I believe that foundation for them is their data strategy that they have all around, like how they monetize their data, how they have a vision to actually collect data from different points and use it to their advantage, right? So that's how I think that that's their competitive advantage. Though people will come up with different algorithms, we all see that, we all hear that. We will be using it to basically accelerate our business models, to accelerate how the market operates in general. But the core competency will still be your IP on which your organization is built, and that's like the key differentiator, I believe, for everyone. And as we think through some of these things, I feel it's important that everyone thinks in those direction for their, like, whoever they are working for, right? We start a big organization or academics or anyone, anything else. So as we do that, right, like I want to touch around a concept of alternative data. Not sure how many of you have heard about it or know about this concept, but it actually started like in early 2000s when it was particularly like the equity guys, the fund managers, who particularly, like in investment, it's all about the information, right? And whoever has the information faster, they can make bets again some of the things which will let them competitive advantage when it comes to the return on their money, sort of things. So they came up with this concept of like, how about not just using the company's financial information to judge how they will be doing, but use other alternate data sets from the market. So those information could be web data, could be the data on what is selling in the market, right? So they were trying to think how we can use this other alternate data set to basically make some decisions which will leave them with their competitive advantage, and they'll be able to make money more than their peers in the market, right? As we see, this concept initially started like as a niche concept. It was quite expensive process to actually collect alternate data set from the market, because obviously there are not many providers who build this data set. And even if they are, how do you basically take it? Again, when you take it, there are like a lot of concerns, again, privacy, governance of the data. You can't like really want to take or consume the data from different places as you are gathering it, right? So there are a lot of concerns. So not everyone was able to do it, but as we moved in the process, like currently more than 50% of the hedge fund managers actually use it. And when I say hedge fund manager, I also here imply that there are a lot many more people than just hedge funds who are using this, right? So be it like different organization in different space, they have realized why not use the data set beyond their internal organization data set to make their data science, to make their AI model, to make their analytics much more smarter. And that's like all the concept around alternative data and how it evolves, right? I'll actually like just give example of what some of this data could be, right? So for example, if like imagine a big retailer, right? Like so of Sainsbury's, M&S, they have like app, everyone have app, like people obviously go to store, but people browse online as well, their products. And if you look at their app data and try to identify which products are out of stocks quite frequent, right? If that information can be sent to their supplier in a much more like a real time sort of a manner. When I say real time, it's not necessary that it has to be like immediately, but it has to be like fresh, right? It's not like you get your data after 15 days. It's more about knowing about what's happening in your ecosystem quite early on. So if you think that way, that if a retailer is able to basically share this information with a supplier, for supplier this is an alternate data set. It's not their usual data set, because obviously they can use their historical information of what people have been consuming and they'll forecast their models based on it. But if they get information like something like what has been out of stock for a while and what people are like actually looking for, right? Because the product could be out of stock, but if no one wants it, that's no one's problem, right? So how basically you can think around data set which are not your usual data set or your own organization data set, but then in the process make your like user experience also much better. And this is just one example. There could be like various different examples, especially around web scraping. One of my friend actually has a startup, and the data they collect is who is getting funding, which company is getting what sort of funding, right? And if you have that information, and if you can provide that information to the banks, then bank can reach out to these companies and take their money to basically park it or invest it or use it in a different fashion, right? It's all about like, though for banking, it's an alternate data set which they are using through maybe web to target or identify whom they can be selling more. So very different concept, again, like using data set which is beyond their scope of ecosystem to make decisions that will drive either user experience, either more profitability or reduce cost, whatever you want to think, right? But there are like examples like this. I actually worked with one of the companies in my previous roles where they were collecting satellite data, right? Collecting satellite data to make important decisions around working with government, right? What kind of basically services are needed in what area. The way typically you would do it is by running surveys and other things, right? But if you can like look at the image, get the value out of it, and use it for policy making, why not? It's a great source of data, which is not your usual data or your usual way of collecting the data, but using it like using an alternate data set which is not in your scope of ecosystem, but it could be provided by someone, a third party, which is collecting this data. You are just consuming it, adding it with your data set to add more intelligence and taking decisions on top of it. So that's where like we are going with when I talk about alternative data sets. Now, how this data set basically comes into picture to our AI model, right? Because that's like our core of our talk. So if you think of any like machine learning model, primarily you will have raw data and you want to build a model out of it. But as you do that, the big step in between is like these features. People call it feature engineering. You would want to be doing some data engineering. Then you would like try to extract features around it. Once you have the features, you will use that features to your models, and that model will basically be built on your feature itself. If we think about features, right, they're like, depending on the industry, right, there can be different features. But the way I like to think about is you have like level 1 features, which is your own internal data. So for example, if you are, again, a retailer, you have transaction data of which customer is buying what, and you have that entire history. You could build derived features on top of it. So for example, if you want to know in last 30 days what this customer bought, so that you might want to know the likelihood of what they will buy in future, right? So you are still using your own data set, but enhancing it with information that is like available to you, but adding more like derived features or calculated features on top of your existing features. And then I call third features as the alternate features, which is primarily the data that you get from the outside world. They can be your supplier, they can be your vendor, they can be your partner, or they could be like just in different entity, right? For example, in the case of the hedge fund, they actually take market research data from firms, which tells them what is being sold in the market, right? So they don't wait for the financial result of a company to be out and then they will know what a sale a company has made. Rather, actually, they can use information like what is being sold in the market. They have that information, and they can, based on that, they can actually make a lot of their investment decisions before even they know about the result or the future result of the company, right? And broadening up with the supply chain ecosystem make things more valuable, though complicated, but it makes it more valuable for the player in the ecosystem as well. So when we think about this, right, so like we have a machine learning model, we have our source of data, we basically then combine it with the features that we extract. Now, there is a process in which you basically get this data, right? So you typically have your data sources. These data sources, again, if you have like external features, you will have to figure out a way to bring that external data into your system. You will do some data engineering to combine that data with your data set. Once you have that data set, you will build a feature list. That feature list will then be given to a model for modeling purpose, and your model will become smart to make much more improved decisions, right? That's a typical flow. But if you see, one of the big challenge in this area is that first part, where you have the data sources and you have to do that data engineering work to bring that data in your ecosystem. Because if you see, right, a typical challenges with like getting the data from external party, which is not your internal, is like you either have to build an ETL kind of a mechanism where the data will come to your ecosystem. You will have to either think of APIs, or you will have to think of some mechanism where there will be data movement. And like data movement one time is fine, right? But keeping that pipeline running throughout is a big challenge as well. That needs a lot of investment, not just of technology, but of people also to manage that pipeline in place. So for that, like what, and again, like if you see in today's world, everyone is like on across cloud, right? So some people are on Azure, some people are on Google, some people are on AWS, and the people whom you are working with might not be on the same maybe region or the cloud where you are operating on. So those add to the complexity of how do you share data between each other in a seamless manner. So for that, like coming to like some solutioning around how do you basically use that alternate data easily in your data set, right? It's around this concept of sharing data globally. So Snowflake actually is a cross-cloud data platform where you can share data between each other, even if you are different region, even if you are on different cloud, right? So that's the technology that helps you try to solve the problem. But that technology is good enough only when that data is also discoverable, right? So you might not know what data is out there in market. So for that, what we have done also is this marketplace. And when I say Snowflake has done is there are other players who have done this as well. My idea is to basically say that think about this concept as like how do you want to use it in your ecosystem, right? Not necessarily with a tool or a particular tool or technology, but it's more about how do you think about an ecosystem where you have a data marketplace where you can go search, look for the data. You like it, you basically get that data. As you get that data could be on other cloud, on other region, but because it is available through a service to you and your data is also available on that service, that data can be combined quite easily. Once that data is combined, you can apply ML models on top of it very easily. And that's where like the thought process goes, where you want to accelerate your time to market by having these kind of capabilities in your ecosystem. If we look at like the flow of things, right? You have like your internal data, you have alternative data, you get like a single place where you can access all of this data. Once you have that, you can apply data science or you can build apps on top of it directly. That's your typical flow of how you would want to take things. Just as a closing thing, right? Like how this thing can be extended further. So there is this concept of clean rooms. Again, not sure how many of you have heard about it, but when you talk about data sharing, right, between two different parties, there are cases where you want to basically work with an organization or your partner to share the data, but you don't want to reveal the PIA data in it. So there could be a possibility where, like, for example, in this case, a coffee shop and a telecom operator want to collaborate together to know some insights in their data set, but they don't want to obviously give away the PII data of the customer because that's not how they want to be seen as using customer data, right? But that, like, doing a blind join on each other data set without them knowing that there is the join happening And then you are able to basically run aggregated analytics or aggregated modeling on top of it. For example, like you are able to run an ML model on top of it, which can give you an inferencing, but you are not seeing the actual PIA data or your customer data inside it. Those kind of things like gives a lot of possibilities around like what is possible, right? So you could do things with basically two parties sharing the data and basically either using it for analytics or ML model and going beyond your traditional route of data usage, right? Is what like is the idea. So on this note, I'll basically stop. Any questions? Uh, Thank you. If no questions, then yeah, I'll be available if anyone wants to have a chat. We can talk. But thank you all.